What's up, guys? I'm Coach Jordan. Welcome to the 2-week Jumpstart. I'm super amped to have you in here. The video you're about to watch is going to explain to you three things. One, it's going to explain to you the major differences between the two distinct schools of hand-to-hand martial arts. Two, it's going to explain to you how Jiu Jitsu differs specifically from the martial arts in its given school. And three, it's going to give you some questions to ask yourself if you're just looking to get into martial arts now, so that by the time you're done watching this video, you'll be able to make an educated decision as to which type of martial art is right for you. Or if you just know for certain that you want to be a Jiu Jitsu player, which of course I think is awesome, then this is information that, in my opinion, every Jiu Jitsu player ought to know. So let's rock and roll. Okay, so what is a martial art? You can pretty much call a martial art any system of techniques used to or designed to defeat a resisting opponent in combat, right? So out of all the martial arts in the world, you can pretty much separate them into two types. You have your weapons-based systems, which we're not going to talk about, and then you have your hand-to-hand based systems, which we are going to talk about. And then of your hand-to-hand based systems, you can then separate those into two distinct types. You have your grappling based systems and your percussive based systems. Let's start with percussive based systems, okay? Percussive based systems are those systems whose techniques are focused on inflicting physical damage to your opponent through the use of blows. That's the primary objective, okay? Punches, kicks, knees, elbows, headbutts, whatever the rule set or scenario allows for, all right? The major thing to consider when considering percussive-based martial arts are that, for the most part, they require mutual cooperation between the two parties engaged in combat. For example, if I were walking down the street and some furious meathead were to want to really give me a knuckle sandwich, and I were to say, protect myself, close the distance, and hug him or take him to the ground, well, his punches and kicks are not really going to do him much good. On the other side of the token, if I were to just run away, well, he really couldn't do me any damage with his punches and kicks unless he were to first hold me down and control me. And that's where grappling-based systems come into play. Grappling-based martial arts are those martial arts whose systems of techniques are designed to control your opponent, in most cases take them to the ground, and then control them in some rule set or context where physical blows, punches and kicks, are of secondary importance to positional control, all right? Some grappling-based martial arts that you might have heard of are judo, Western wrestling, freestyle wrestling, collegiate wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, sambo, sumo, and of course, Jiu Jitsu, all right? So how does Jiu Jitsu differ from all the other grappling-based martial arts? It differs from all the other grappling-based martial arts in three distinct ways. Number one, Jiu Jitsu is practiced through the most expansive rule set. Number two, Jiu Jitsu focuses specifically on a positional hierarchy. And three, Jiu Jitsu has the most intricate and detailed way of fighting offensively while on our back. Let's go back to number one, the most expansive rule set. Most martial arts, including grappling-based martial arts, are practiced through some limited rule set. For example, judo focuses on how to take your opponent from a standing position to the ground wearing a gi or a kimono designed for combat, using only upper body holds, and the match stops once somebody hits the ground. Western wrestling focuses on taking your opponent from a standing position to the ground, pinning them on their back, using upper and lower body holds, wearing, basically nothing. Nothing that you could grab on, all right? Jiu Jitsu, however, focuses not only on taking your opponent from standing to the ground using upper and lower body holds, but controlling your opponent on the ground It's practiced in the gi and no gi, in a sport context, meaning no strikes, and an MMA context, allowing for strikes. So pretty much Jiu Jitsu runs the gamut as far as rule set is concerned, which in my opinion is a good thing. Okay, number 2, positional hierarchy. Jiu Jitsu has a very clear system of positions, a clear order of positions that a Jiu Jitsu player will advance through, that each offer increasing offensive potential relative to the last until we can get our opponent to admit defeat. I'll start somewhere, and there's a very clear order of positions that I will progress through until I can get my opponent to admit defeat. And in sport, that's done through choke or joint lock. In MMA or self-defense, that can include strikes too. But we won't start striking our opponent until we've obtained a clear position of dominance. Okay? And then number 3, well, there's not much to say about that. Jiu-Jitsu, we have a very detailed and technical way of fighting offensively from our back, a position known as the guard. So that's great, coach. Still, how do I decide what I want to do? Well, the way that I usually help people make this decision is to ask themselves to first answer the question of whether their primary objective is fitness-based and then martial arts-based, or martial arts-based and then fitness-based. If your primary objective is fitness-based, honestly, I recommend starting out with something percussive. The reason is that starting out with something percussive is going to allow you to get on the mats and from day one get a great workout without really pushing yourself too hard mentally. Whereas Jiu-Jitsu, you'll also get a great workout from day one, but you're going to be trying to coordinate your body in ways it's unaccustomed. You're going to be trying to make sense of a whole bunch of foreign concepts. And you're going to be getting wrapped up by people who are half your size and a lot weaker. Now listen, I mean, nobody at the gym is going to hurt you. In fact, everybody knows exactly what it was like to be on the mats on day one and have to learn from scratch. So everybody is very willing to help, and of course, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to learn as quickly as possible. But the point is, it takes work. It takes more work and heart and determination than just stepping on the mat and hitting a bunch of pads and getting a good workout. So Jiu-Jitsu just takes a little bit more of an investment and determination on the front end in order to get that gratification out on the back end. Though I would argue when you get that gratification, once you're finally able to wrap somebody up, it's far more gratifying than being able to throw combos and slip some punches and kicks. That's my opinion. Okay, well, what if your primary objective is martial arts based? Well, then I tell them to answer the question of whether or not their objective is sport based or practicality based. If they care more about sport, then I just recommend going with what you think is cooler. Most folks just have a natural inclination towards one or the other. They just prefer to watch Muay Thai on YouTube, or they prefer to watch Jiu Jitsu on YouTube. And my recommendation is just to go with that. Do what you think is cooler. If your motivation is practicality, well then pretty much at the end of the day, it boils down to Jiu Jitsu. But let me give you a few scenarios. Let's say you're a woman and you want to feel confident in your ability to defend against a male attacker in an environment where you can't just run away. Maybe a bedroom or an ATM booth, and you have to know how to get out of that situation. You can't just run away. You have to defend against yourself. Well, no matter how good a kickboxer you are, the likelihood that you're going to be able to do significant enough damage to a man with strikes in a scenario where there's adrenaline involved to get him to back off is highly unlikely. You're really going to need to get him unconscious. And what I mean by that is take his back and choke him out. And that is Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, well, you definitely want to learn Jiu-Jitsu in that case. Suppose for some reason you're concerned with your ability to you walk through like dangerous neighborhoods at night and you want to feel confident in your ability to defend against multiple people that want to mug you instead of just run away. Definitely in that scenario, You don't want to find yourself on the ground, which jiu-jitsu is likely to end up putting you on the ground. But the thing is that if you do, for some weird reason, want to stay and fight a bunch of muggers, the chances of one of them having a knife is pretty high, in which case your punches and kicks aren't going to do much good. You're really going to want to know how to control that opponent and disarm them, in which case we're back to jiu-jitsu. So if your motivation is practicality based, it's really just jiu-jitsu all the way. So to summarize, okay, you got your two different types of hand-to-hand martial arts: your grappling, your percussive. Percussive requires mutual cooperation. Grappling-based martial arts allow you to impose your will on somebody who's not cooperating, okay? Jiu-jitsu differs from most grappling-based martial arts in three ways. It's practiced with the most expansive rule set. It focuses on a positional hierarchy, and it's got a detailed and a technical way of fighting offensively from our back. If you're trying to decide what you should do, you need to ask yourself if your primary objective is fitness-based or martial arts-based. If fitness-based, go percussive. If martial arts-based, ask yourself if you want sport or practicality. If sport, do with what you think is cooler. If practicality, pretty much jiu-jitsu all day long. So hope that helps answer some questions, and let's move on to the next one.